Hi, how are you doing? Good afternoon. Thanks to Martin, I don't really have to introduce DBT anymore, which is awesome. Thanks for that. Nor do I have to introduce semantic layers and how they connect to relational databases. So this is going to be a really short talk. No, I'm kidding. Okay, my name is Anna, and I work at DBT Labs. We build DBT. And the way that I would frame what we do is we think about helping teams of data professionals turn all sorts of loose code, analysis, notebooks into a knowledge graph, rather, of your company's knowledge, right? And it's a transformation layer, right? So as folks have pointed out earlier, you do that through SQL and Python. And as of October last year, we've been in a preview of a semantic layer that sits on top of all of that. And I'm not here to talk to you about that exactly, because I run the data team at DBT Labs. I don't run the product team. I'm here to talk to you about how we've actually been dogfooding this internally. So how did we adopt the semantic layer? What did it look like for us? What did we learn in the process? And what are some of the things that we hope folks can take away from that for their own organizations? So that's what our journey today is going to be. And I call this kind of broken analysis telephone as the problem we're solving. Like folks mentioned earlier, the siloing of information. This is one example of that. I'm going to tell you about 4 actionable steps that my team took to try and resolve that problem with the semantic layer. I'm going to talk to you about what we learned about semantic layers and how they overlap with the socio-technical system that is your organization and what a socio-technical system is. I assume that most people in this room know what that word means, but we're going to go into it anyway. And then how to adapt your organization for this change. So with that, little audience participation time. Let's imagine for a second that you are running a business. It's a fruit stand. You sell apples, okay? In a town of 10,000 people. How would you define who your customers are? Anyone? People who like apples. Okay. Anyone else?
People who have bought apples.
People who have bought apples. Okay. People who have bought apples from you or just in general? People who have bought apples.
People who bought apples from me.
People who have bought apples from you. Okay. All right. What if you gave away apples for free because you wanted to build business? Are those people that you gave apples away for free to also your customers? No? Maybe yes?
Different type.
A different type of customer. All right.
Did they provide their email when they got their free apples?
Did they? For the folks online, someone said, did they provide their email address when they purchased your apples so that you could follow up with your drip marketing campaign? Exactly. And so if someone takes the apple and gives it to a friend, are they the customer? I think you get my point, okay? It's a seemingly simple question, but in an organization, it turns out that even simple questions like how many customers do I have today are not really that simple, because your mental model of what a customer is can be really different from someone else's mental model of what a customer is. And so I've got 2 friends with me today, Ms. Successful CEO, and her trusty data ninja who works at her organization. And so Ms. Successful CEO wants to know how many customers she has today. And the data ninja is thinking, okay, well, obviously it's the 100 paying customers that we have today, right? Which is what someone said in the back. But Ms. Successful CEO, she's used to thinking 5 years ahead. She's like, no. It's actually the 10,000 people that I'm going to turn into customers. Obviously, it's all the people who like apples, not just the people who bought apples from me today, right? And so that's how you get misalignment in organizations. And that's actually the foundation of a lot of miscommunication and broken data telephone. And this is compounded by where the data ninja and Ms. Successful CEO sit in the organization chart, right? Because what tends to happen is Ms. Successful CEO asks a question, it trickles down through layers of organizational hierarchy, turns into many weeks of back and forth across this org chart because, well, it turns out they're not asking about the same thing, right? And so if you make assumptions, you're going to have to redo something. And imagine if you're making really important business decisions, especially in like 2023, right? Where macro conditions kind of determine the speed with which you have to make decisions is like that, right? Things are changing all the time, and you're probably making lots of hard decisions in any given week. So our tolerance for this kind of communication inefficiency, like this was always inefficient, this was always a problem. This problem has existed for a long time in organizations. But this year in particular, or the last couple of years, our tolerance for this kind of inefficiency has really gone down. This is very painful and it is very expensive for a business. It's expensive for us. It's very, very painful for us. Like this is a problem that most organizations experience. And so token graph, since I'm at the Knowledge Graph conference, but I want to kind of demonstrate why this isn't just a people problem, right? It's not just an org chart problem. So you could think about this in terms of like, all right, well, obviously the data ninja is too far away in the org chart from Ms. Successful CEO, right? So your immediate reaction would be, well, why don't I put them in the same room together, right? Like, wouldn't that solve the problem? Then they have the opportunity to talk about the definition of a customer. And it turns out we solve problems like this with people all the time. So what this chart is trying to illustrate is like we're just reducing the number of hops between Data Ninja and Ms. CEO, right? But it's not just the Data Ninja that has this problem. Maybe you reduce the number of hops with the Data Ninja, but what about your finance team? What about your accounting team? What about your operations team that has to actually build out workflows to send out those marketing campaigns, right, to the people who bought your apples? Are you going to make all of those one hop away from the CEO in a 1,000-person organization or a 10,000-person organization? That starts to feel a little bit challenging, right? So it's not actually feasible to solve this problem with people as much as we think that reducing the layers of communication is going to help us. So how do we turn this into an actually simple question, right? Instead of having folks misaligned, how do we make sure that both the Data Ninja and Ms. Successful CEO are thinking about the same thing when they're starting that conversation, so that you don't have to do organizational chart gymnastics in order to make that conversation work? And so the way that we solved this problem is we solved it with Semantic Layer. And the thinking there was, if you start by representing the critical ideas in your business in the semantic layer, and you agree on those definitions up front, then it's easier to socialize them to the rest of the organization, right? And so here's an example of what this actually looks like for us. We have, as a business, DBT Labs, right? We're a SaaS tool. So we have active customers. We have active customers who have trial accounts, who sometimes, but not always, become paid accounts, right? We have admins on those accounts that usually have access to multiple accounts. And sometimes a customer, especially if they're large, they can have multiple accounts as they grow, different business units, acquisitions, that sort of thing. That's kind of a constantly evolving problem, right? And there are certain users that might have tried out the account because, I don't know, maybe they were part of security, they were evaluating it, but they're not necessarily the same users who are using the paid account, right? So there's some overlap, but not entirely. And then we have like this whole other category of future customers who have like a little bit more simplicity in that structure. And so what we're doing here is we're first aligning on how we all understand the business. Right? So in order to just build this out for your organization, for your Apple shop, you kind of have to really understand how your business behaves, who the people are that you're selling to, what your business motions look like. and then be able to translate that into technology. So your semantic layer isn't just going to solve that for you. You're not going to be able to throw a bunch of data at it and then put a layer over it and say, okay, cool, magic. I have 10,000 tables, and now I know everything. You kind of have to start with the understanding of the business and then work backwards from there, which feels counterintuitive because we have so much data at our fingertips. So that's step one, right? You have to represent your business. You have to like really understand the entities that are involved in the thing that you're doing. Then you can start thinking about defining your most important business metrics, because you can layer them with a thorough understanding of the business. So, okay, I've got a bunch of users. It's relevant to look at usage at a user level because users are actually doing things, right? It's relevant to look at onboarding stages. It's relevant to look at when people log in. It's relevant to look at what kind of features they're using. It's less relevant to look at that from a customer point of view because there might be different things going on, right? So you start mapping metrics that are important to your business to the right part of the representation of your business in your semantic layer, right? So for customers, you care about retention, churn. ARR might actually be a feature at the account level, right? Because you might have different business entities that want to be billed differently in different parts of the world, might have different currencies. And it turns out there's a secret fourth layer of your business when you take all of your business entities together. And this is metrics like net dollar retention, right? This is like measurement of your entire business, cost to book, net promoter score. And so you have to be able to look at that across your entire customer base. And as you start kind of planning for these things, it becomes a lot easier to understand where and how to start defining your work. And then this is the part where I show you one screenshot of of the software, right? The next step that's really important is to actually document it in code and then version it, because this stuff is going to change. Your organization is constantly evolving. Maybe you decide to sell oranges tomorrow, right? Maybe you expand into the next town over. So as your business changes, the things that you represent in your knowledge graph of the business also have to evolve. But you want to be able to understand them, right? You want to be able to get a sense of how they've evolved. You also want to set up some controls, because you don't really want random person to walk in and change your definition of a customer in your organization, right? You probably think about, okay, if Ms. CEO is asking questions all the time about how many customers we have, before I change the definition of a customer, should I, like, she probably wants to know about it, yeah? And so, you know, you start thinking about control in a really different way when you adopt code-based workflows and version control. And this was a really, really important step, because all of a sudden it introduced just a little bit of that friction that requires people to stop and think about, like, okay, now that we're using shared definitions of things, now that everybody's using the same definition of a customer, if I change it, it's going to affect everyone in the business. If I on the data team change this definition, the finance team all of a sudden has a bunch of things that break, right? And that is a good thing, because all of a sudden it encourages collaboration across those different functions that didn't exist before, and it encourages communication. And this is where step 4 comes in, which is access and data contracts. So rather than starting with your org chart, you're kind of ending with it. Once you've defined your business, once you've defined all of the things that you want to know about your business, once you've put all of that into code and version controlled it, then you can start to ask questions like, who needs to be able to modify this, right? Is access to sensitive data required to be able to validate it, right? So let's say you're modeling information about your diversity and inclusion program, right, in your organization. There are lots of sensitive fields and information. And this is a true story. This is actually something that we have in our data model. There's lots of sensitive fields and information that you want to report on. There are folks in the organization who should be able to see that, but lots of other people should not be able to see the raw data, right? And so at the same time, you want to be able to provide an API to other teams to be able to use that data, right? You want to be able to say, okay, I as the people team have put together a dashboard that shows our progress on our diversity and inclusion efforts. And other folks can pull in those metrics, the aggregated data, and they can use it in, say, quarterly planning. They can use it in promotional materials when we try to recruit folks, right? The marketing team can pull that information in. So all of a sudden that gets really exciting, but also safe, because there's it's provided through an API rather than you pulling the direct data. So where am I going with this? Are you with me so far? Yeah? Okay. Hopefully you can see that the point I'm trying to make is that semantic layers aren't like a magic silver bullet for improving data decision making. And that's because your business is a socio-technical system, right? And what does that mean? A socio-technical system means that it's a combination of the humans that represent that organization and the business systems, the technological systems that connect them. And so usually when we design business systems, we think about facilitating communications between individuals in that organization. It feels natural, right? We put the person first. We're like, okay, this is my org chart. These are my departments. And this is how I can build tools and interfaces so that they can work together and communicate. But what if that's backwards, right? What if instead of designing for what people already have in common, designing for your existing business units, what if instead you should be designing for what you want them to have in common, right? So rather than having data in, this is my marketing data set, this is my customer success data set, this is my DE&I data set, right? This is my people data set. What if instead you design for things that you want to be able to share out, right? This is my campaign data set. This is my organizational finance data set, right? This is our revenue data set, and everybody uses that. This is our customer data set, and everybody uses it. All of a sudden, you kind of move up one layer in the coordination and collaboration in your organization, because you're using the socio-technical system to your advantage, right? You're using technology and you're creating a system that encourages people to interact with each other in ways they normally wouldn't because of the organizational chart. Make sense? Yes? Okay. So, nice, okay. How do you adapt your organization for this change? It's kind of a big shift in how you think about organizing a business, because first you have to kind of learn to delegate governance to a layer of technology rather than to sets of humans. Like, we're used to thinking, oh, okay, the marketing team knows all about the marketing stuff, and therefore they are the best positioned to know about our marketing metrics and marketing data, right? But in this world, we're saying, actually, no. Like, they're contributing to a shared knowledge base, but that information should be accessible to everyone. And we should be thinking about what are the things that need to be exposed to the rest of the organization. The other thing that needs to change from like a social and cultural point of view is that it needs to be okay to have conversations about building shared meaning in an organization. One of the things that's really interesting, like as a data practitioner, we have conversations all the time about like, is this the right number? Is this the right metric? Am I looking at the right thing? Is this data right? And the truth is that's a good conversation to have. It feels scary. It feels like if two teams are going back and forth about like, oh, I'm defining it like this and I'm defining it like that, that something is broken. But it's actually a really important process in building meaning. It's an important process in building alignment. It shows you that Ms. CEO and our data ninja are not talking about the same thing. It shows you that there's something broken and that you need to kind of dig in and fix it. So you shouldn't be afraid of it. You should make it easy to have those conversations, but provide a layer of infrastructure to allow you to take those conversations and turn them actually into code. Consider what breaking changes and change management looks like, because if you create more friction in your data process, you have to be thoughtful about change management approvals and like what needs friction and what doesn't. Not everything needs to be super locked down, right? And you need to make things discoverable, but probably not modifiable by default. Like it should be easy to discover the APIs that other parts of the organization have made available to you in your semantic layer. Remember that your organizational hierarchy has nothing to do with your data hierarchy, right? That's what we've been talking about today. And start funding your organization to be a little bit more data literate. And that's kind of what investing in SQL as a lingua franca here means. So, DBT as a tool isn't, DBT semantic layer isn't defined in SQL. It's YAML layer on top of SQL. Yes, there's SQL and Python and all these other things. But whether it's SQL or Python or something else, it's investing in helping your organization feel empowered to make changes to this system, whether it's the semantic layer in YAML, whether it's your graph representation from relational AI. Invest in helping people actually engage with that, because then you're going to be able to translate that knowledge and share it to the organization, right? It doesn't work if it's only a few people doing it. It has to be the people in the marketing team and the people in the success team and the people in the revenue team all getting together and documenting what they know. That's what I got. Yes.
So it's more of a comment than a question, but I just looked in the DBT Slack, 50,000, 51,000 people, right? So there's a lot of people doing this stuff and not necessarily that connected to our community, and I would love to establish those connections. So I really, really excited about this. And the language, that we talked, it just was great to see the language you were using to talk about what the problems are. It's really the same set of problems this community is trying to solve. So, and if I can ask an actual question, in the slide where you showed the screenshot, you had like certain rules or like there, like that. What is that? Is that a fragment of SQL or is that something else?
That's a good question. So in this case, it's a metric that's defined on top of other metrics.
But what is that syntax? What language do I
Here?
learn? Yeah, it's the bottom code part.
That's the templating stuff, right?
It's yes, it's a flavor of it's a flavor of Jinja and SQL that compiles down to SQL, and so DBT would do that for you.
But it's a fragment of a SQL query.
Is it SQL? Is it Jinja? Is it DBT language? Is it what is it?
I'm not intentionally being coy. This is in the process of changing, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not showing you code examples today. But what this is a YAML configuration, and that configuration tells DBT how to compile this into SQL.
Okay,
So-
the main specific language that compiles the SQL.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what you see as code here is actually an analyst going in and writing out a representation and saying, okay, I want to take the ARR month start and the net change, and I want to turn that into a derivative metric. And they don't need to know how either one of those metrics is calculated. They just trust that those things are correct because they've already been defined and agreed upon by the organization.
So really, we're defining here net revenue in dollars retention rate as being equal to ARR month start plus da, 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 da.
Yeah.
That's the equation, basically.
Exactly.
Great.
And that's it.
Semantics.
Yeah. Literally just semantics. Yeah. That's fine. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to say your question back to you, is your question, how do you take this representation and like actually connect it to your star schema in your data warehouse?
Yeah, like use cases. When I say stuff, I'm saying that we have certain use cases.
Mm-hmm.
Just like
Mm-hmm.
so, and we have a common vocabulary that use. So, I think it's
It's a good question. So you could do this 100% in SQL if you really wanted to. So you could define a customers table, an accounts table, a users table, and the relationships between them, right, as a separate lookup. And that's what data engineers have been doing since time immemorial. And you could get a little bit more sophisticated by putting a semantic layer on top of that. And what you'd be doing there is you'd still have your customer table, you'd have your account table, and then you'll start being able to define the relationships between them in the semantic layer itself.
Time for one more. So this feels a lot like a graph. It even feels like a semantic graph to me. But I hear you saying SQL and YAML a lot. So is it virtualized? Is it like a virtual graph, but it's just mapping on the fly to tables, or are you building a graph somewhere?
It's mapping on the fly to tables. Yeah. It's mapping on the fly to SQL that will pull information from your tables.
So like a virtual
Yeah.
semantic graph in the head, but it translates on the fly.
Sorry, I just want a clarification. It translates to SQL or a Python stored procedure that you can call from SQL? Like, where's the Python fit into this?
It's a good question. Right now, it only translates to SQL. But what you can do is you can chain things together. So think of your knowledge graph in your business as a representation of a bunch of different things. It's your customer table. It's the BI dashboard somewhere down the line that is using that information. It's the metrics that use your customer information, right? Like net dollar retention, like what have you, all of those things that we just talked about. And your Python models are a part of that graph, a part of that DAG is what we would say. And your Python model could be the machine learning model that you build on top of all of that to predict, right? So they're pieces that fit together. So DBT itself is a graph because it allows you to chain transformations, metrics, semantics, Python code, and kind of express different aspects of your business the way that you need them to.
Great. Thank you so much.
I'll also be around.
All right, in about 60 seconds, we have Stephen Goldberg from Morgan Stanley joining us to talk about.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry? Yeah. Oh, is it? You're right. So there's like.